This is her.
You don't know me, but I'm local here in Woodland Park. My
Uh
name
huh.
my name is Michael Dalton. I don't know if you know that name. I've messaged you on Facebook. I got your number through a mutual friend, and I had seen something that you posted, and I just wanted to see if you would make any comments about Patrick Frazee.
Oh, I've known Patrick for a long, long, long time.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Um,
And then he's been doing my ponies for over 10, 15 years.
okay.
He's been my farrier, and he was here, what, 3 days after that supposedly happened?
Y-
After Thanksgiving?
yeah.
Yeah.
What was his demeanor like?
Are you just a friend, or are you a news
Do you,
person?
do you know anything about the Woodland Park Underground?
Yeah?
That's me. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm not a news person. I actually lived on Kelsey's block. Um,
Oh, you did?
yeah, I still do. I still do. And I am interested in hearing everybody's side of the story, and a lot
Yeah,
of people have said a lot of bad things about Patrick, and even if I don't necessarily agree with everything people have said, good or bad, I think everybody deserves a fair shout out both in the media and social media, as well as they get their fair day in court.
well, it has been upsetting to see some of the things people have written about him. And it's not to lessen what's happened to Kelsey, because that in itself we can never fix or change or make better.
Yeah, I know, and
I
I
mean, I've
understand
met
that.
her. Patrick had brought her over here um, when they first got together, and they were so happy. And yeah, but then Patrick did confide in me about a few things that were happening in the relationship, where she had decided she didn't really particularly care for his lifestyle, being a cowboy, and decided that it wasn't for her. And they split ways, and then Patrick showed up one day with the baby, and he's like, "Yeah, she had a baby," and came back and said, "Well, she came back before the baby was born because he went with her to the hospital, but um, he asked for a paternity test, and it was his."
Oh, so
So
there was kind of a question whether or
yeah,
not it was his baby for a while.
that's coming from him to me. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um,
But all this other stuff about Kelsey being a drug addict or whatever, I don't believe any of that. Um, Swaying towards Crystal having more to do with it than we all think. Um, it just doesn't make sense.
did
Patrick could have killed her a million different ways than to do it like that. You know.
did did you know Patrick's mother?
I've never met Patrick's mother, but when he spoke about her, I knew his mom wasn't in the best of health. And he lived with her to help take care of her. I had a health issue, and Patrick always, every time he'd come, asked me how I was doing and my family, and, he knew us all, my whole family.
They has law enforcement contacted you at all?
No.
No. Yeah,
Mm-mm.
it doesn't seem like
And
they.
on his phone records, it would show he had called me. Oh, probably. I called him right after Thanksgiving, and told him I needed him to come do the ponies. And he showed up the next day. So, and he had the baby, and like he always did, he bundled her up and put her in her stroller and brought her up to my horse pen, and the baby would just sit there, and we'd play with her and stuff while he did the ponies.
So this was just
people.
this was 3 days after Thanksgiving or 2 days after Thanksgiving?
3 or 4 days after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you feel like, do you have an opinion?
Was fine. I mean, he came, we did the pony's feed. He came in the house. I gave him a box of chocolate and a Christmas card and wished him Merry Christmas, and off he went.
Yeah.
Nothing seemed any different about him at all.
Wow.
So, and I didn't know anything about Kelsey. He didn't say anything about, it's been a week and I haven't been able to reach her or anything like that.
Yeah, so he didn't mention that she or anybody was looking for her or anything like that.
No, not that close after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It was only a few days, so, normally he had the baby every time he came here.
Oh,
and I didn't know that there was... I assumed they were getting along, and I didn't even know that they were sharing custody because he always had her.
When did he share with you that that she didn't want to maybe be with the cowboy?
Well, it had to have been when she took off, and I thought she took off back to Grand Junction, but I don't know where she took off to. And didn't tell him she was pregnant until she came back and told him she was pregnant and ready to have the baby.
Oh, like this was before the baby was born. This is when they had a little breakup or something.
They had broken up, yes.
Gotcha.
And he was bummed out. He was bummed. He couldn't get over the fact that she just didn't want to stay with him because she didn't like, his lifestyle. That's the word he used.
Did he ever mention Crystal?
Never.
Said you've known him for...
friend, and I won't mention his name, who used to be in law enforcement in Park County, that we all kind of grew up together here, and he knew Patrick really well. And when we first talked about it, he asked me if I knew of this other girl, and I said no, I didn't know anything about her. He didn't mention her name or anything, but he did mention there was another girl involved.
You mean?
How he knew, I don't know.
You mean after all this happened, there's a guy in law enforcement in Park County that kind of mentioned Crystal to you, but didn't mention her name?
Correct.
Wow. Since you known him as a farrier, does he use these black totes for his farrier equipment?
No. I never saw a black tote.
Ever?
I don't know. I never really looked in the... I've seen in the back of his truck.
Yeah, I mean, if you...
He had his red truck, before he got this new truck, it was an open back truck, and then he had a camper on it. But I would always go over to the truck with him while he got out the tools and whatever to help him hike up to where the horses were.
What did he carry his tools in?
Well, it was just a kind of like a small step ladder kind of thing that the tools hung off of.
And then he put the horse's foot up on that little ladder.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I know exactly the tool you're talking. I know exactly the kind of toolbox you're talking about. I grew up in that, so I understand that.
Yeah, and that's all I ever saw as far as what he had in his truck. I never really saw much else. I never really thought to, look. No, I know that you never thought maybe to look and say, hey, where's he pulling his tools out? But to your the tools were always attached to that bench.
Yep.
That, step stool kind of thing.
Yep. No, I
So
totally
that's all he
understand.
ever brought out.
Yep, I
Yeah,
understand.
I didn't see no black toad. My big question, and a couple have come up. It's like, I don't care how much I would have loved somebody. I mean, this doesn't make sense to me that he would do something that horrible and then call her from another state to come down and clean up a mess like that, and that she would even have the stomach to do that.
Yeah. So where do you? I mean, have you been to the court, or have you been paying attention, or do you have any opinion on it?
I'm following it, and lately this, what is it, Crime Talk, this attorney that put that on YouTube.
Yeah, that lawyer that put that real talk right after the preliminary stuff.
Right. After listening to him, I don't know, he said that the preliminary hearing went pretty good for Patrick.
Yeah.
And basically it's going to boil down to, she knows more than he does because he's not said a word. And the other thing is, why wouldn't the DA, before he would cut her a deal like that, and after all the information she knew in detail, make her tell them what the hell he did with the body at that point?
Yeah.
Why didn't he ask her? Why didn't he make her tell him that? She told him everything else.
Well, she talks about, and she says that he burned the body. I mean, that's what she says. And
I know, but why wouldn't they ask her where the remains would be?
Well, I think
looking at the transfer stations and the dumps, and I mean that's what a waste of time.
Well, that's definitely a waste.
What exactly what happened?
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that and agree with you that there is a waste of time and stuff. It's like, so for all intents and purposes, you talked to Patrick 2 to 3 days or 3 or 4 days after.
4 days after.
3 or 4 days after Thanksgiving, and he seemed as normal as always.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he came in, I gave him a hug, I gave him his candy, I thanked him for everything for the year, and
man,
and him and the baby, and off they went. And that baby was always so happy. She was a happy baby.
Wow.
He took really good care of her. He always bundled her up really good and made sure she was safe, and it's just really hard. I understand things can go horribly wrong in relationships, but that's my other question is, Patrick would have been invested emotionally enough to get that angry to do something like that, depending on what she was threatening, as far as taking the baby away. But Crystal would have had no emotional attachment.
Yeah. So you think Crystal plays a bigger part than what she's definitely letting on to?
Look, Patrick could have went in there and just strangled her to death. It wouldn't have had to get that gruesome. I don't think he would have. You know what I'm saying? A man could have, he could have taken her out. He was strong. He could have taken her out a bunch of different ways.
Wow.
And not do it like that. It would seem to me, I don't know. And I don't know. It's just so horrible. I mean, believe me, my heart goes out to Kelsey and her family, first and foremost. Not trying to protect Patrick. I don't know this other girl, but my gut feeling says she's more involved than she's saying.
Yeah, I believe that. When you said that you had met Kelsey before, was that just she was with Patrick when he did the shoes?
Yeah, and they were pretty much in love at that point.
So this was before the baby and everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And I was surprised he had such a pretty girlfriend.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he had lost another good friend over family issues and, you know, a girl and her family making it hard on him. And he went and committed suicide. And Patrick had a really hard time with that.
That was one of Patrick's friends?
Yeah. I just wish they would tell what happened to the body. Patrick's not going to say a word. And like that lawyer said, it's going to come down to in court, I didn't do a damn thing. I don't know nothing. She knows more than I do.
And when you think Patrick's not going to say a word, Patrick's a pretty patient guy, isn't he?
He's very quiet and to himself.
Gotcha.
But he would always talk to me. We talked about stuff because my son went through a horrible custody divorce, and you know, we had talked about that. And I always told him, you know, Patrick, it seemed like nothing was ever gonna get better, but it did. You know, it just took time.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you ever meet Patrick?
He never said anything about a custody battle or anything at that point. He had the baby.
Yeah.
I had thought she took off. I didn't think she was even around.
Did you ever meet Patrick's brother?
No.
No.
No, see, socially, I just didn't know them.
Yeah, just because he was
part of the group. Now, the Snares, you know, Randy and all those guys knew him a lot better than I did. In that way, socially more, I think. This is just going to be an interesting, tough one. I mean, I obviously both of them were involved.
So you're not under some idea that Patrick is completely innocent.
No, but my opinion is she did it and he helped her clean it up. Vice versa, what happened.
Gotcha. You just don't think he would have had to do it that way. He was much bigger and stronger than her.
Oh yeah, he could have just choked her out.
Yeah.
You know, well, why would he want to hit her? Like, you know, why would he want to do something so gruesome? He would have had to been really freaking angry. Because none of us really know what happened. We don't know. And we don't have all the evidence that's been presented to us. But I think that Dan May, the district attorney, jumped the gun.
You think he jumped the gun when he gave KK or Crystal a deal?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and do you think Patrick's mom may be involved?
No.
No.
No, not at all.
Gotcha.
No, she's not healthy. Not a healthy woman. You know, I mean, you know, they're saying that she knew he had something burning up there, but I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot's right across from me here.
We
had the FBI here on our property setting up surveillance on top of our hill here.
Oh, you live close by, Patrick?
Yeah. Patrick was always such a nice, polite, and how's the family, and how's your heart, how have you been feeling? These are the kind of conversations we would have.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
but when it comes to matters of the heart, things can turn bad fast.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
But if he had another girlfriend, I just don't get it. It seems to me like she would have been more...
Are you there?
You know,
gotcha.
like they were saying, the angry girlfriend, you know, that she wanted Patrick, and this girl was going to be around for a while, co-parenting no matter what. It doesn't make sense to me that killing her would resolve anything on Patrick's end.
Yeah, it sounds like...
I mean, custody hearings, so what? Millions of guys go through custody hearings.
Yeah. Well, especially if he had people, I mean, for all intensive purposes, could have had people like you that said, hey, yeah, he used to bring the baby out and, you know, bundled her up. She was always happy, having fun or whatever. So the motive, I mean, I understand the motive if a wife was to tell, or if somebody was to tell me that I couldn't see my kids, I've said it. Murder would come across my heart, you know, just because that's my kids, you know. So I can give that to him, you know, a little bit if that's what happened.
But that wasn't the case because he had the kid. I mean, how is that going to change? Like I told Patrick a long time ago, in Colorado, you know, a judge wants both parents to co-parent, unless he's some kind of a drug addict, which he was not. He wasn't an alcoholic. You know, I mean, he was clean as a whistle. There would be no reason for a judge not to grant him 50-50.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, it's a very sad situation all the way around.
It is, and it's going to get more and more interesting. You know, being a nurse, she could have stomached that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand your thinking on that.
You know, but I don't want to be putting, you know, throwing her under the bus either.
Well, I mean, she's already kind of thrown herself under the bus. If she's telling the truth, it's a gruesome, gory story in which she played a part of. If she's telling halfway truths and lying about some things, then it's even more, you know, more gruesome.
We can't believe her at all.
Yeah.
You know, and what makes us angry in the community is if she knew as much as she knew for that long, that she didn't go and call the police, and she could have saved Kelsey's life several times. That to me just doesn't register.
Absolutely.
We're angry about that. She could have helped Kelsey. She could have done something to help her.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have if I thought somebody's life was in jeopardy. I wouldn't have cared if that was my boyfriend. That, you know, you got to know what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
She was an educated girl. I want to know why in the hell they didn't, before they agreed to give her a plea, have her say, okay, you know he burned the body, where is the remains? What did he do with them? So they would know where to go look.
Yeah, and there is she did give some testimony to that. She said that they were either at the dump or he put them in the river. And if he was thinking the river, I'm thinking he's talking about the South Platte there out of Lake George or something. But
you don't get, I mean, he would have had to crush the bones up. I mean, we talked to our friend,
okay.
And in fact, we're helping him build a crematory he's putting up there.
Okay.
And we talked to him about, you know, what temperatures they use to burn bodies, and then they still have to crush bones.
Yeah.
Bones don't burn.
Wow.
I thought for sure Patrick would have cracked by now if he did it.
Do you think, I mean, even with your statement going he was quiet and he's reserved and stuff, you think he would have actually, but, you know, he was taking notes during her testimony like he didn't know what happened.
I know. I saw that. I heard that. And it's like, and that she physically did go to the house. I mean, I don't know enough. I just don't know enough. I don't understand why she would have thought she could befriend Kelsey enough to go and give her coffee. I didn't think they were friends. She knew she was an ex-girlfriend of Patrick's.
Oh, do you think Kelsey knew? Do you think Kelsey knew about Crystal?
Well, would you let a stranger into your house that you didn't know, a girl, and hey, here's a cup of coffee?
No, no. I mean, no. I understand. I mean that whole story is coming directly from Kelsey or Crystal, who was saying that she backed out of it, and so you got to take the context of that story for what it is. She obviously was up to something, and she's telling.
And then she lied to her girlfriend, who she took the truck had the gun in it. That wasn't Kelsey's gun. That was her girlfriend's gun. That was in her girlfriend's car. Who said it was missing, that she had a round of ammunition in the clip and nothing in the barrel. And then when she returned the gun, there was a bullet missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're all just in the same boat trying to figure it out. Not like we're going to solve it.
No, I understand. I'm more like, I feel like Patrick has gotten a one-sided story told about him, and I felt like, I saw a comment that you had put online, and I was like, oh, well, this woman knows Patrick, so I felt like I would at least try to track you down and see if you would be willing to talk to me a little bit and tell me more about Patrick.
And we had a bunch of personal conversations.
Yeah.
Especially about Crystal. Not Crystal, about Kelsey.
About Kelsey.
When things were going bad.
And you say that was before the baby.
Yes.
But after the baby, you felt like things had been going good.
He never talked about it after the fact. I always just saw him with the baby. So I assumed she wasn't around.
Gotcha.
I
understand.
He never said anything about, he said he was taking care of the baby and how hard it was for him because he was taking care of his mom and, trying to work and have the baby and take care of her.
Gotcha.
So the bottom line is I think Crystal has way more involvement than she's saying, that she cut that deal to save her butt. And like that attorney said, that would confirm what we were even feeling and thinking. Did they charge the right person?
Yeah.
We'll see. It's going to boil down to he said, she said, and I don't know how they're going to prove it.
Yeah. Maybe this is do you know any of Patrick's friends? They mentioned someone as Patrick's friend in there. Did Patrick ever have anyone with him helping him ferry?
No. Never came with anybody. He was always alone.
Always alone or with just the baby?
Yeah. And I don't feel comfortable speaking for anybody else. Like if I released that one guy's name that was in law enforcement and stuff, without his permission, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
No, I understand.
But they were good friends. He's known Patrick since he's a little boy.
But
that doesn't mean anything.
No. No.
People flip.
Yep. They do.
Under duress. Sorry over it.
But in your opinion, seeing Patrick only 4 days later, it's not like there was some drastic change in his attitude. And this was before anyone had even reported her missing. So, if he was acting, he wasn't acting out of the normal.
Right.
So
he was just like he always was. Smiling, Merry Christmas.
Well, and for all intensive purposes, this is even, close to the time or right after Crystal would have been down here and would have had to clean up, according to their story. This would have been just, they say that he probably did, if he burned the body like she says, he would have burned it on the second day after or the day after Thanksgiving. So we're just talking.
Yeah, right around the time he was here.
Yeah, it would have been just right around that time, the 3 or 4 days after that he would have been doing all of this. And you're saying he wasn't acting weird out of anything.
He might have, this is just talk.
Yeah.
He might have said to her, I'd like to kill her, you know, she's making my life miserable. I mean, we say shit like that, you know, but, you know, it seems more likely to me that, you know, she would have went ahead and done it and called him and said, you got to help me get rid of her. I did it. He might have asked her. I don't know. The thing of it is, she did have she already pled guilty to being involved. Patrick hasn't pled guilty to nothing. And they're going to go after her because of that.
Yep.
The only people who are on his side are the people that knew him. The rest of them have him already hung.
No, he's definitely been, and I'm as guilty as anyone. You know, I've sat across from him on more than one occasion in the courtroom. I've been at all the hearings and the motions and all this, and I've said he's either a dad up there that's innocent or he's a monster. And
yeah, exactly.
It's one of the.
You can't get a read on him. That's what I was saying. I can't get a read on him.
Yeah, I mean, and you've known him. You've known him before the hand. You've known him years back, and so that's why. I mean, that's really why I reached out, because I do believe people that knew Patrick need to stand up and say something. But with the flip side of that, you've been real honest and to say, you know, he might have done this, you know, or he might have been a part of it, or he might have asked her, he might have, you know, and so because you feel like if he did it, it would just be him by himself, he would take care of it, not as vicious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see why he would have to go to that extent to kill her.
No.
He could have just grabbed her around the throat and that would have been the end of it, or threw her down and put a pillow over her head. I mean, come on. To do something that violent? And the other thing is, I don't know, Crystal. I have no idea. You know, my oldest son is an RN, and I know they see a lot, and they are able to deal with those kinds of things. But as far as, you know, if she would have went and cleaned that up, but I don't know. I just don't know her.
No,
so I don't want to throw her under the bus either.
Well, like, again, she's kind of already thrown herself under the bus. So it's not like we have to sit here and speculate when we say, she says she was involved by doing this, this, and this. She said she showed up and almost gave poison coffee, you know. So, like, we're not speculating based on anybody's testimony but herself. And so even if she is lying, even if she's lying about the whole thing, she's still lying about the things that she supposedly did. And so, you know, or she's saying about these things. And like that
attorney said, you know, if she hadn't opened her mouth, Patrick would be free.
No, absolutely.
They have nothing on Patrick. They have no DNA, nothing.
Yeah, they have a few video shots. They do say that, but that could all be explained away, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, they were co-parenting.
Yeah, no, I understand.
He was going back and forth to her house.
So
I don't know, but let me write your name down so I remember if you call me again.
Yeah, my name. Again, I've always talked about stuff here locally on the underground, and then, I mean, this happened on my block. Kelsey did live on my block, and my wife was at the Safeway on Thanksgiving morning, and I drove past Kelsey's house at about 12:30 on Thanksgiving, and then again around at about 5:30, and so within those windows, we were going to a Thanksgiving dinner just down the road, and so it's still super close to me, and and super close to this area, even though I didn't know Kelsey personally or I didn't know Patrick. I have no doubt that Kelsey and the baby walked past my house, or I would have seen them at the park or whatever. And so it is pretty close to me as well. Even though
they would have had to have been getting along pretty well for her to give him the baby for Thanksgiving.
Well, absolutely.
When the parents fight the most over who gets the kid.
Well, and the problem with the story is it'll just depend on what Patrick says or doesn't say. You know, everybody is even. Well, you're telling a different story than Mom. Even when I say Kelsey's mom, you know, Kelsey's mom was under the impression that they were still together, that they had worked things out. I mean, even to the point where Crystal's story says, and I know they didn't release this info, but this was actually testified in court by CBI Officer Slater. He said, you know, he tells this story of bend over and smell the candles, put a blindfold on her, and then beat her with a baseball bat. If you're separated, if you're just baby's daddy, you're not having this intimate moment with her. And so there is a confusion on what exactly their relationship was on our sense.
Definitely, because like I said, I didn't know anything after the fact, after the baby was born, other than Patrick always had the baby when I saw him.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is a. It is around. It's definitely a. It is a story we may or may not ever know the truth to.
Yeah, Teller County hasn't had a story like this since Jacob Bime.
I know.
Remember that?
That was a while. That was years and years ago.
Yeah, he was in school, same grade as one of my sons. And I was angry about that one, too, because Jacob had gone to counselors at school and tried to tell them what was going on to get help, and nobody wanted to do anything.
Yeah.
But Major, the one that actually did it, he was a psycho. But anyway, let's get on a different subject. Hey, keep me posted. I would love nothing more than I look at Patrick and I just want to bawl.
No.
I don't know why I feel so bad for him. On the other hand, if he did it, I'm really upset.
No, I understand. Well, thank you for your time today. And
you're welcome.
And thanks.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's called me, because if they looked at phone records, my phone number would have been on his phone.
Wow. Well, and that's another.
They did come and set up surveillance here. So.
They did come set up surveillance, is what you said?
Yeah, on our property. That's all our land there.
Gotcha.
So they went up on that hill. They came barreling through here. And my son saw him going up on the hill, and he followed him up there, and he said, who the hell are you? And they showed him their badges that were FBI, and we're setting up surveillance. And he goes, not without permission, you're not. And he said, if I were you, son, I would get out of here and now.
That's what he said to your son?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they had the drones and everything else. They didn't find anything that day.
That was before they ran the warrant? What day was that? Do you remember?
That's before the actual arrest.
So that would have been before the 21st?
Yeah, I didn't keep track of the time frame.
Yeah, so they ran the warrant on the 21st. Do you have any estimates on the day, like the arrest warrant? Do you have any estimates on the day? Like, was it a couple of days before he got arrested, or the day before?
When they set up surveillance over here, how many days after that they came back? Initially, we heard they found nothing when they searched. They had brought tobaccos and all that, and they didn't find it. We saw them hauling all that up there. Can you have any idea how many days after that they turned around and came and arrested him? It was only a few days, wasn't it?
Yeah, the arrest warrant was issued on the 21st, or the arrest was made on the 21st.
Yeah, it wasn't long after. It was only a few days, maybe 3 days, at least 3 days after, because they initially said they found nothing. They found nothing in his truck, but then DNA or nothing had come back yet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't it until after they searched her place that they came and got him.
Yeah, it was, because they did search, and then they let them go back. But they arrested him the day they brought the backhoe and towed the truck off, because that was the day of the press conference at the Grange there. And and I was actually there that day, and they took the red truck that day. And then they brought in a backhoe that day to search the property. And that was after their search. But I bet they had come over to your place and done surveillance prior to that.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying, yeah.
Well, no, they were doing surveillance when they were searching his property.
Oh, they were... Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's when they set up the surveillance, when they were searching. We had drones, helicopters.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So when's the next hearing?
The next hearing, I believe, is April 8th.
April 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then...
Well, if I can muster, I'm going to go. I don't care if I have to wait outside, but...
Well, no, I think they're letting the public in. You just can't take any cameras or recording devices in. And
I would just like to... I don't know, I'm afraid to feel one way or the other for fear that, I surely don't want to defend someone who might have been guilty of something that heinous. But on the other hand, I'm just going by what I know as who he was prior up to that happening.
And that's more than a lot of us have. A lot of people are only going on what we've heard and maybe a few videos we've seen of him. But other than that, like you said, he hasn't said anything. He hasn't said much. He hasn't definitely not confessed to anything. And so, no, I think that your voice should be heard in a sense of, you're someone who knew him beforehand and before this went down. And so you have to be able to give, you've been able to at least give me some perception into Patrick a little bit more than just, essentially you guys are neighbors. And even though you're not personally and didn't have parties or have dinner together, you were still involved. He was still there. We
talked. We talked for an hour, while he was here every time. It was just him and I.
Yeah, no, so that is in my mind.
I always talk to him like a mom,
Yeah, I understand.
All right, Michael, I won't keep you anymore.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
All day long trying to figure out what happened.
I understand. Well, thank you so much for the call or taking my call, and I'll talk to you later. All right.
I'm always around, so give me a call if you need to.
All right, thank you. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.